Wonderful. Hi there. So as was mentioned, my name is Rehana Nathoo, and I lead the Impact Investing program at the Case Foundation. If you don't know us, that's okay. We're a little small. We are the family foundation of digital pioneers Steve and Jean Case. And we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We're based in Washington, D.C., which is a relatively new home for me, particularly interesting time to be in D.C., so it's nice to be in London. And it's really been a fantastic journey for us over the course of the last 20 years around people and ideas that we genuinely feel can change the world. And given the topic today around impact investing, kind of want to share with you all a project that we've been working on for the last 2 years, really. And really here, somewhat selfishly, to ask you to join us in a journey over the course of the next year. So a little bit about our work in impact investing. So the Case Foundation has been at this for a few years. And essentially, our approach to the field has always been as a movement catalyzer. And the way that we've defined that for impact investing is particularly around inspiration, education, and activation for investors. Why is that important to us? You've heard today and yesterday so much good insight on how much the impact investing world has changed. And we've seen that too, quite frankly, particularly from 2014 to now. We've been somewhat overwhelmed with the diversity of actors that have embraced impact investing. And particularly across the investor segmentation. We've seen institutional asset owners and managers build either internal impact investing capacities or offer products. We've seen families look outside of the conventional philanthropic model to new hybrids that allow for easier impact investing. We've seen specialty managers, RIAs, and wealth advisors start to craft impact-focused strategies for their families. And so we were particularly excited about what has been happening across the impact landscape. But the caveat there is what we were hearing was, I'm ready. I'm ready to jump in, and I have absolutely no idea how. And so our CEO, Jean Case, a few years ago wrote this piece in Forbes about the myths of impact investing. And she chose 4, although I think we can all agree here there's probably 100. She chose 4, and the 4 that she chose really represent the bulk of the conversations we've been having with investors. Myths like impact investing is innately financially concessionary, or impact investing is charity, or impact investing takes away from charity. It's just a few actors, it's just a few dollars. And while there's quite a long way to go for the ecosystem to truly scale, I think all of you in the room know that it's far larger than we have an actual assessment of. And so as we were having those conversations one-off in a fairly siloed fashion, we realized that there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to take what we've learned and put it out in the public domain, with the hope of continuing to fulfill our mission of diversifying engagement across an investor base. And I know that a lot of you in this room are particularly focused with the same thing. So what's interesting for us is that in 2013, we tried to sort of capture what this really looked like. We tried to capture the opportunity to actually show impact. And we did so through a publication called The Short Guide to Impact Investing. For those of you who haven't seen it, you're welcome to access it. It's shortguide.org. And essentially, it was our attempt to take the complexities of impact investing, distill and drill them down for an investor base. And that was really the kickoff for us around the power that investors have once they have information. So about 2 years ago, after the case study was sort of launched and really getting out there, we started working on something called the Impact Investing Network Map, which is what I really want to talk about today. And we want to show you at some point today a quick snapshot of the beta that we've developed, but first want to just run you through really what we're talking about quite intentionally here. So the first thing just to mention, when we say Impact Investing Network Map, what is that? There's a majority and an incredibly diverse amount of tools out there in the impact space. The map looks to actually provide information that we know around historical transactions between investors and companies and visually represent where that activity is. So there's a couple of pieces there that I just want to call out. First, the map is really meant as a relationship or connection tool. What I mean by that is, if you have a particular interest in an asset class, an industry, an investor, if that is what you know, if you have some specificity around what you're looking for, the map gives you an idea of what's happened historically. The historical piece is important to us. As we were talking to investors and trying to understand what the real barriers to engagement were, a lot of it was just a sense of what has happened. And so we wanted to reflect that. So what the map does is demonstrates completed and closed transactions. It is not a live deal matching or making platform. The other thing to mention is that the Impact Investing Network Map for us, in addition to being a tool that we hope will scale the ecosystem, it's been an experiment, and it's been a specific experiment in technology for social good. As an organization that has technology well baked into our DNA, we really wanted to try and find a way that technology and impact could come and live together. And so in many ways, what you're going to see today is very much an experiment. Every time we talk about it, we scream from the rooftops that it's beta, beta, beta. And the importance for that for us is to indicate to all of you that this is just a starting point. We really hope to scale and grow the tool. But in order to do that, we absolutely need to think outside of the box, and we sort of need your help to do it. The other thing that I'll sort of mention, oh, thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. I was just going to keep going. This is great. Let's just catch up, yeah? We'll catch up. But you guys didn't even know. I was just going to roll through it, yeah. Excellent. So now that we're caught up, I think the other piece to mention there, too, is what the impact investing tool is not. We were not looking to reinvent the wheel. We heard loud and clear from lots of different folks in the space, we didn't need another framework. We didn't need another set of metrics. In fact, what we needed was a visualization tool that brought together best in class. And so that's what we've tried to do. Once we take a look at the tool, we'll talk a little bit about how we're pulling in an iris taxonomy. We've worked with the B-Lab impact assessment to understand how they codify and classify companies. And we've used general, non-sector industry standards to make sure that the tool is as accessible as possible, regardless of what your insights are around impact investing. And so leveraging that is important. But what's equally important is that's just our starting point. What we would love to test over the course of the year is that the best way to organize this information? Are there other tools or frameworks out there that we need to rope in to make this clear and accessible information? So we're pretty excited about getting that feedback back. The other thing that I'll say, and this is really the entire impetus for being here today, the Impact Investing Network Map as it currently exists is only as good as the data that provides it. And the reason that that's important to us is because we have had the good fortune of partnering with two data partners, Impact Space and Crunchbase. And what these two organizations have done is created data sets that provide a sliver of the known impact investing ecosystem. So the data is not comprehensive, but not particularly because the sets are not comprehensive, but because we rely on a spirit of disclosure in the field to really be able to populate the tool. And so for us, the opportunity in this entire exercise is to reach out to you and vice versa to make sure that all of our data, all of the information on the activities we've engaged in are truly showing up on the map. Beta, beta, beta. I'm just going to keep screaming it over and over just in case there's any lawyers in the room. Beta, 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 beta. We absolutely are thinking about what's next, but this is only a pilot. It's only a snapshot of the potential of the work that we can do together. So with that in mind, perhaps we'll just pivot over to the tool for a second. And what we wanted to show you was basically the prototype as it exists today. So this is the Impact Investing Network Map. And I just want to call to your attention a couple of things. The first thing is what you're seeing here is the ecosystem of companies tagged in Impact Space's database as impact companies. Why is that important? I think a lot of the conversation today and yesterday has been around the definition of impact. The Case Foundation has spent a lot of time on this. And we have come to the conclusion that the definition of impact is particularly subjective. In some ways, based on where we are in the evolution of the field, it should be. It has to be. The tent is big enough for lots of different folks with different articulations to be a part of the community. But what we're absolutely rigorous about is the intentionality. How explicitly do you state your impact? How clear are you on your ability to say, my company, my fund, my product is looking to do X across the financial spectrum and Y across social impact? And so in doing that, what this map represents is an equally broad swath of impact companies and funders that have identified their impact in a different way. The sophistication that we're trying to bring to this is how intentional is that? So what you'll see on the left-hand side is a filter around impact objective. There's a set of filters underneath that. And essentially, we're starting to create a process whereby companies and investors that plug into the map articulate that objective. As they input their data, they tell us what they're focused on. They tell us the industry that they care about, or the fundraising vehicles that they've looked at. What you're seeing here are the green dots, companies, blue dots, investors, and where there are gray lines, transactions between the two. Again, historical. And so depending on whether you're looking at a company view or an investor view, you start to get a sense of really the amount of detail that's available in the ecosystem. We can drill down even further. So if you know exactly what you're looking for, which is a generous amount of the investors or actors that we've spoken to, the tool allows you to input in the search bar a company or an investor. And once you do that, you have two pieces of information that I just wanted to highlight. The first is profile information, very simple profile information. Why is this important? When we were thinking about designing this tool, there were three particular audiences that spoke to us. The first audience was that investor that's heard about impact investing but has no way to start, or has the good fortune of a Rolodex of other impact investors, whom he or she calls, gets a few names, does some due diligence, and potentially acts. But what that assumes is the value of this new investor matches the value of their peer. And that indeed is an assumption. And so for the investors that know a little bit about impact investing and know a little bit about what they want to do, what are the tools available to them to just understand the universe that they're interested in? That's group one. The second group that we were talking to that we were surprised by were the wealth managers and advisors. And what we heard is, look, our due diligence process is what it is. It's robust for us, but sometimes it's incredibly helpful when a new client comes in and says, I want to do impact investing, to give them examples, to show them a tangible, concrete company or funder that is aligned with their values. And so something like the Impact Investing Network Map could provide just a few of those examples. And then the third group that we've really been thinking about are the social entrepreneurs. At the Case Foundation, we've been particularly focused on the role that millennials will play across a sort of a global landscape. We've done a millennial impact report for a few years now. And in doing that, we've started to really understand that the majority of millennials are seeking entrepreneurship far quicker than any of their predecessors. And not just entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. That fine and hard line between profit and purpose doesn't exist as easily with that demographic. And so if we truly believe that a majority of millennial entrepreneurs are thinking about social entrepreneurship, how can they start to build better businesses with less cost and less risk because they just understand the landscape around them? And so what we're hoping that the tool will do is whether you're looking at a company or you're looking at an investor, you can search for an actual entity. Or if you don't know what you're looking for, you can use the filters that I've briefly sort of described here to start to pick out your values, your geography, your fundraising type, your amount. As I was mentioning, the other piece of this that's really important to us is once you drill into a company or a fund or an investor, you get the profile information, but you also get a second tab. And that tab is around fundraising details. And here's why we think this is important. What the tab basically tells you, if you're a company, for example, is who's invested in you, what the date was, what the round type was, and the total round amount. That's it. It provides a snapshot into fundraising activity from a company or an investor perspective. And what that means when we see that on the map is that the company has chosen at some point in time to disclose this information. ImpactSpace and Crunchbase derive these data points from publicly available information. So it says something quite concrete about that company's desire to put that information out into the public universe. And so that's what we're really looking to capture. If you are Delight Design, which does distributed solar energy in emerging markets, and there is a budding solar energy provider that is thinking about creating a business, how helpful would it be for your call sheet, which probably is hundreds and thousands of funds, to narrow down to 10? Or conversely, if you're Acumen Fund and you invested in Delight, which they did, how helpful would it be to understand if there's other renewable energy companies out there in the universe? The important caveat here for us is we do not intend for this to be either a due diligence or a pipeline development platform. There are many folks in this room that have done a fantastic job of building those. Instead, we're thinking about this as step one across the informational value chain. We're thinking about this as a process or a product that allows you to know a little bit more about the ecosystem that we're continuously talking about. And so for us, the map is particularly important in simply relaying information that we genuinely feel is already out there. There's another piece to this that's particularly important to us, and that's something we're calling the data insights. And so if you see at the top of this screen, the next tab over at the top there is Insights. And what we were consistently sort of confused about, and not naively, I think this has been 10 years in the making, is that so many different organizations have tried far and wide to try and aggregate broad trends across the impact investing ecosystem. And in some cases, standardization is weak, or we don't have the right frameworks. In some cases, we just don't have the right data. But we were really thinking about the opportunity for this specific tool to help inform that process. So as the GIN does their annual survey, for example, are there nuggets of information collected across a broad landscape that allows researchers, academics, aggregators to say even more about impact investing? Can we truly make this a public tool? And so in its current iteration, as I mentioned, we only have 2 data partners, but our absolute goal is, as there's more data into this map, the insights functionality of this tool really, really grows. And so it's particularly important for us as we think about what's next to talk for a moment about where we think there is some synergy across this room. I think the first thing just to mention is that we've built something that we hope, at least in its current iteration, is something that you can all contribute to today if you so choose. And so back on the PowerPoint, we've included a link to the Impact Space website. And so whether you are an investor or a company, an aggregator, an accelerator, you name it, you have an opportunity today, if you so choose, to go directly to Impact Space, input your information, and that gets drawn onto the map on a weekly basis. So that starts to really round out the universe, at least for the tool. But it's so much more than that for us. I think the other piece that we've really been focused on here is kind of aligned with our role as movement catalyzers in general. What can we do to actually change behavior? There was a moment in time when we were considering what to do with the map that we thought, should we actually say something about performance measurement or management? Should we have a piece in here around financial expectations, social returns? And we decided there were some organizations already trying to crack that nut, but more importantly, that was probably a few steps ahead of where we needed to be. Where we need to be is changing behavior around disclosure. And as I mentioned, what the tool really yields is simply information on who's invested in whom and where. It provides fundraising information so that you can orient yourself as a new user. But our genuine belief is that that kind of information, as basic as it is, could go quite far to actually painting the landscape. And so together, can we actually do something by way of changing our behavior around what we share? And then finally, if we actually achieve that, which is, it's only a matter of time, if we actually do achieve that, then the third and final frontier for us is how do we create the most robust tool possible? Yes, individual data helps. Sharing around behavior absolutely helps. But what is most critical for the long-term growth of this tool is more data in aggregate. And so we're looking towards our partners that are aligning metrics or creating frameworks or aggregating large sets of data to be a part of this. And again, in the true hope that this is something that gets taken to the next level, that we actually have a tool that services the ecosystem. The last thing I just want to say is that even though the call to action probably sounds incredibly intense, it is fairly important to us around what we think about in 2017 to start to shape a campaign that allows all folks to be a part of this. And so my plea to all of you is if you have ideas on how we can sort of scale the impact investing ecosystem, if you have ideas on how we can change the tool so that it's quite value add to the work that you do, we'd love to hear it. You'll also see from us over the course of the year a lot more conversation around what it really requires to change behavior. A lot more engagement across our organization, but more specifically with partners around what the real challenges are. And we'd love to crowdsource those. If you have ideas on what they might be, we'd like to reflect that. And so I'm going to, this is a dangerous thing to do, but I'm going to throw my contact information up there. We do not have funding. Maybe I should, I should caveat with that. I'll throw my contact information up there because I really, truly believe that when we started on this map, and actually to today, the goal has always been to create something for the ecosystem. The goal has never been to generate another proprietary technology. The public and transparent piece of the Impact Investing Network map is germane to who we are as an organization. And so if you have any of the ideas I mentioned, you'd like to be a thought partner, you want to join us in this campaign, or you simply want to submit data, the more that we get your engagement and interaction, the better the tool is. And together, we can successfully get on the map. Thank you.